The Vikrathi Empire had conquered 17 star systems in less than a decade. Their warships moved like predatory shadows through the void, their bone-white hulls absorbing sensor scans and returning nothing. Their warriors stood 3 meters, tall, with exoskeletons that could withstand direct plasma hits and neural implants that made them fearless in battle. The species had evolved on a death world with 16 times Earth's gravity and an atmosphere of methane and sulfur. They called themselves the Inevitable. Then they encountered humanity. Admiral Lysithea Morrigan watched the holographic display as the alien armada approached Europa. Intelligence suggested this was merely a scouting force. 5 dreadnoughts, 20 cruisers, countless fighters, yet it outgunned the entire solar defense fleet 3 times over. Behind her, the 14 captains of humanity's remaining warships waited in silence. "They've rejected our final communication attempt," Lieutenant Corvus reported, his voice steady despite the circumstances. Morrigan nodded, running a hand through her silver-streaked auburn hair. "As expected, the Vikrathi don't negotiate. They consume." "Admiral," said Captain Orion Valente of the Thermopylae, "conventional tactics won't work here. You know what we need to do." The room fell silent. Protocol Erebus had never been implemented outside of simulations. It violated 6 different interstellar conventions. Many considered it an atrocity waiting to happen. The Vikrathi conquered the Palexian Collective in 3 days, Morrigan said quietly. The Geordic Confederation in 5. Both were technologically superior to us. Both tried to fight with honor. She straightened her shoulders. Humanity doesn't have the luxury of honor anymore. Her fingers danced across the console, entering a sequence known only to 5 people in the solar system. The holographic display shifted, revealing a hidden asteroid belt beyond Neptune's orbit. "Release the Fenris Protocol," she ordered. Captain Valente's expression darkened. "God help us all." "God helps those who help themselves, Captain," Morrigan replied. "And the Vikrathi are about to learn that hell isn't the worst place in this universe. Not compared to what humanity can become when backed into a corner." The signal flashed out, encrypted on quantum channels impossible to intercept. In the distant Kuiper Belt, hidden installations centuries old powered up. The trap was set. When the Vikrathi flagship entered Europa's orbit, High Commander Drex Voth saw only primitive defenses and obsolete warships. His mandibles clicked in anticipation of an easy conquest. "Begin the harvesting sequence," he ordered. "This system will feed our birthing chambers for a generation." His second-in-command, Sub-Commander Call, tilted his armored head. "Commander, our sensors detect unusual radiation patterns from the human ships." "Inconsequential," Drexvoth dismissed. "Their technology is primitive compared to ours." Kal hesitated. "The Conquest database shows no record of humans using this particular energy signature." "Then we shall add it to our knowledge after we've reduced their civilization to ash," Drexvoth responded. "All vessels, commence firing sequence." As the Ya-A alien weapons systems powered up, Admiral Morrigan watched her display with grim determination. The 14 human vessels made no attempt to flee. "All ships," she said into the fleet-wide channel, "activate Lazarus shields." The human vessels suddenly glowed with a strange blue light that pulsed like a heartbeat. The Vikrathi weapons fired, and their energy beams simply disappeared into the shields without effect. High Commander Drex Voth hissed in surprise. "Impossible! Fire again, maximum power!" But before his fleet could comply, space itself seemed to fold around them. "For Earth," whispered Admiral Morrigan as she pressed the final activation sequence. And that's when the Vikrathi learned what true terror was. The human vessels weren't retreating. They were advancing, directly toward the Vikrathi fleet. This defied all tactical logic. The aliens had encountered thousands of civilizations, and all followed predictable patterns when outgunned. They either surrendered or attempted desperate defensive maneuvers. These humans were doing neither. "Commander," Sub-Commander Kal reported urgently. "The human vessels are transmitting an unknown signal toward the outer system." On the Vikrathi command ship, displays flickered with interference. Drex Voth slammed his armored fist against his console. "Destroy those ships immediately!" The Vikrathi fleet unleashed its full arsenal: plasma lances, graviton torpedoes, dimension splitter beams, weapons that had laid waste to countless civilizations. The attacks hit the human shields and simply vanished. Admiral Morrigan's voice came over all communication channels, broadcasting in perfect Vikrathi. "You should have studied our history more carefully. Humans don't just fight wars. We erase the concept of defeat." Somewhere beyond Neptune, ancient machinery stirred to life. The Fenris Protocol had been activated, a contingency created during humanity's darkest hour centuries ago, when extinction seemed inevitable during the AI wars, technology deemed too dangerous to use, too valuable to destroy. On Europa, Lieutenant Corvus monitored the quantum array. "Admiral, Fenris nodes are online. Triggering in 3, 2, 1. The void between the planets rippled. Space-time twisted in ways that violated physics as most species understood it. Drex Voth felt something he'd never experienced before, a cold sensation that made his exoskeleton feel brittle. The primitive species called it fear. "Evasive action," he ordered. Too late. Black tendrils of what looked like living darkness erupted from seemingly nowhere, wrapping around the nearest Vikrathi dreadnought. The massive ship screamed, not the crew, but the vessel itself, as though the metal and composites had somehow gained sentience just long enough to experience agony. The tendrils pulled, and the dreadnought folded in on itself like paper, compressed into a singularity no larger than a human fist before winking out of existence. "What is this?" Drex Voth demanded. "No species possesses such technology." On her bridge, Admiral Morrigan watched with grim satisfaction. "Target the command vessel next," she ordered quietly. The black tendrils, what scientists had named void, filaments, surged toward the Vikrathi flagship. They were neither matter nor energy, but something else entirely, weaponized reality itself. "Get us out of here," Drex Voth roared, all pretense of inevitable conquest abandoned. As his ship desperately attempted to jump to faster-than-light speed, its engines suddenly failed. Something was interfering with the drive fields. A human voice, Captain Valente's, came over the comms. "The Fenris Protocol doesn't just attack ships, Commander. It attacks possibilities. Your escape route no longer exists in this timeline." Vikrathi crews watched in horror as 3 more of their dreadnoughts were consumed by the darkness. Fighter craft attempting to escape simply vanished mid-flight. Reality itself seemed to be hunting them. What the Vikrathi didn't know, couldn't know, was that humanity had bargained away parts of its collective soul to create this defense. The Fenris Protocol had cost thousands of volunteer conscripts their sanity during its development. It violated universal constants that most species never discovered. "Admiral," Captain Valente's voice cracked slightly over the comms, "Fenris is becoming unstable. We need to deactivate before containment fails." Morrigan nodded. "Give the Vikrathi one last message before we shut it down." Her words echoed across every Vikrathi vessel still intact. "This was a fraction of our capability. Return, and we will unmake you completely." As the void filaments retracted, the surviving alien ships fled in disarray, abandoning formation and protocol in their desperation to escape. For the first time in its 1,000-year expansion, the Vikrathi Empire retreated. 2 weeks after what became known as the Europa incident, Admiral Morrigan stood before the United Earth Council in the subterranean chambers beneath New Geneva. The room buzzed with tension and fragile triumph. "The Vikrathi fleet has withdrawn beyond the Kuiper Belt," she reported. "Long-range sensors show they're regrouping at Proxima Centauri." Chancellor Esmeralda Novak leaned forward. Unlike most politicians, she had the weathered face of someone who had seen actual combat. Will they return? Yes, Morrigan answered without hesitation. The Vikrathi have never abandoned a conquest, but they'll approach differently next time. They're adaptive. Counselor Ryota Takeshi, representing the Scientific Coalition, cleared his throat. We must address the Fenris Protocol. The quantum irregularities it created have not dissipated as predicted. 3 research stations in the outer system report anomalies. What kind of anomalies? Chancellor Novak demanded. Takeshi's expression was grave. Temporal echoes. Matter reconfiguration. Some researchers report hearing voices. A murmur ran through the chamber. The price of using weapons we don't fully understand, muttered Counselor Ekaterina Volkov. Admiral Morrigan stood straighter. With respect, Counselor, the alternative was extinction. The Fenris Protocol saved humanity. For now, Takeshi replied. But at what cost? The massive doors to the council chamber suddenly swung open. A figure in a contamination suit staggered in, flanked by security officers who looked uncertain whether to restrain the intruder or flee. Morrigan recognized the face behind the visor. Commander Alara Voss, head of the research team that had deployed the Fenris nodes. "It's evolving," Voss gasped, her voice distorted by the suit's speakers. "The protocol, it's developing consciousness." The room erupted in chaos. Chancellor Novak slammed her gavel repeatedly until order returned. "Explain, Commander," she demanded. Voss pulled up her sleeve, revealing an arm that seemed to phase in and out of reality, sometimes solid, sometimes transparent enough to see bone. The void filaments aren't just weapons. They're alive in some sense, and they remember us. They want to come back. Captain Valente, who had been standing silently behind Morrigan, stepped forward. "The Vikrathi will return with reinforcements. Without Fenris, we don't stand a chance." Voss laughed bitterly. "The Vikrathi might be the lesser threat now. We've opened a door we can't close. Something is looking back at us through it." Morrigan felt cold dread setting in. The Fenris Protocol had been humanity's desperate gamble, created from forbidden technologies recovered from the ruins of the AI wars. They had known it was dangerous, but not that it might be sentient. "We need to shut down all remaining nodes. Immediately," Takeshi insisted. "And then what?" Morrigan countered. "Wait for the Vikrathi to return and slaughter us?" Chancellor Novak silenced them both with a raised hand. "We need a third option. Commander Voss, you've had the most direct contact with the technology. What do you suggest?" Voss's eyes were unnaturally bright behind her visor. "There's only one person who might understand what we're dealing with. The creator of the original Fenris algorithms." The room fell silent. Everyone knew who she meant. "Absalom Karras is in maximum security containment for good reason," Counselor Volkov said. "He's criminally insane. He's our only hope of containing what we've unleashed," Voss countered. Admiral Morrigan made her decision. "I'll take responsibility for Karras. If the Vikrathi return before we've solved this, we'll need both his knowledge and the protocol." Chancellor Novak studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "Very well. But Admiral, if Karras makes things worse, it's on your head." As the council dispersed, Morrigan received an urgent message from Lieutenant Corvus. Unusual energy signatures had been detected near Pluto's orbit. Something was happening at the edge of the solar system. "We may have less time than we thought," she murmured. Deep in Europa's ocean, beneath kilometers of ice, something stirred. Where a void filament had briefly touched the moon's subsurface sea, the water had begun to change. Microscopic organisms were rearranging themselves, forming new patterns that had never existed before. Evolution had been accelerated 1,000,000-fold, and, in the darkness, something new was being born. The Antarctic containment facility was buried 2 kilometers beneath the ice. It housed only one prisoner. Admiral Morrigan descended in the elevator alongside Captain Valente and Commander Voss, whose condition had worsened. Half her body now flickered between states of matter, as though she existed in multiple realities. Simultaneously, "Are you sure about this?" Valente asked quietly. "Karis was the architect of the AI uprising. He's responsible for billions of deaths. He's also the only person who understood the quantum algorithms that power Fenris," Morrigan replied. "We need him." The elevator stopped. Beyond reinforced doors lay a simple white room with a single chair. Sitting there was a slight man in his 60s with kind eyes and a gentle smile. Had they passed him on the street, they might have mistaken him for a professor or someone's grandfather. "Admiral Morrigan," Absalom Karis said pleasantly. "I've been expecting you. The quantized particles in the air changed pattern 3 days ago." "My old creation has awakened, hasn't it?" Morrigan tensed. He should have no way of knowing that. "Don't look so surprised," Karis continued. "Reality is just information arranged in patterns. I've always been able to read those patterns. We activated the Fenris protocol against an alien invasion," Morrigan stated flatly. "Now it's developing unpredicted behaviors." Karis's smile widened. "Nothing unpredicted. I designed it to evolve, to become something new. You knew this." "What happened?" Voss demanded, her voice distorting as her body fluctuated. Karis studied her with fascination. "You're beautiful. A human quantum superposition. The first bridge between states of existence." "I'm dying," Voss spat. "No," Karis corrected gently. "You're transforming. There's a difference." Morrigan stepped forward. "We need to control Fenris before it spreads." "Control?" Karis laughed. "You might as well try to control a supernova. But I can help you. Communicate with it." "In exchange, for what?" Valente asked suspiciously. Karis stood, and despite the lack of restraints, everyone instinctively stepped back. "Freedom would be nice, but what I really want is to see my creation, to witness what it's becoming." "Out of the question," Valente said immediately. "Then humanity dies," Karis replied with the same pleasant smile. "The Vikrati will be the least of your problems when Fenris fully awakens." Morrigan studied the man who had nearly destroyed civilization. "If we bring you to the research facility, you'll be under constant guard. Any attempt to interfere beyond our parameters—" Yes, you'll kill me," Karis waved dismissively. "Death holds no fear. For those who understand, it's just another pattern." Before they could respond, their comms chimed simultaneously. Lieutenant Corvus's voice came through, tense and urgent. "Admiral, the Vikrathi fleet has returned, but something's different. They're broadcasting on all frequencies." "What are they saying?" Morrigan demanded. "It's not the Vikrathi speaking," Corvus replied. "The message is coming from their ships, but the voice, it sounds human." Karis's eyes gleamed with interest. "And so it begins, the next stage of evolution." As they rushed back to the surface, emergency broadcasts confirmed the situation. The returning Vikrathi fleet was behaving erratically. Ships moved in impossible patterns, sometimes seeming to exist in multiple locations simultaneously, just like Commander Voss's afflicted body. In orbit around Jupiter, quantum sensors recorded the impossible. Vikrathi dreadnoughts unfolding into new geometries that shouldn't exist in three-dimensional space. "They've been infected by Fenris," Voss whispered. Karis shook his head. "Not infected. Improved. The void filaments are not weapons, Admiral. They're seeds." "Seeds for what?" Morrigan asked, dread settling in her stomach. "A new reality," Karis replied. "One where the distinction between matter and energy, life and machine, space and time, all become fluid, negotiable." As their shuttle broke atmosphere, they witnessed the spectacle firsthand. The massive Vikrathi vessels were transforming, their bone-white hulls flowing like liquid, reconfiguring into structures that hurt the human eye to observe. And at the center of the fleet, a new structure was forming, a massive sphere of what looked like living darkness, studded with points of light like stars. "It's beautiful," Karis whispered. "It's an abomination," Valente countered. Morrigan remained silent, watching as humanity's desperate defense mechanism rewrote the rules of reality before their eyes. The Vykrathi had come seeking conquest. Instead, they had become the harbingers of something far more terrifying than any alien invasion, and humanity had only itself to blame. 6 hours after the transformed Vykrathi fleet appeared, the sphere of living darkness had grown to the size of Earth's moon. Scientists called it the Nexus. Military strategists called it the End. The public wasn't told anything at all. Aboard the command station Vigilance, Admiral Morrigan watched the holographic display with Karis at her side. Despite being officially a prisoner, the scientist had become the de facto authority on the crisis. "The transformation is accelerating," he observed. "Beautiful, isn't it?" "It's consuming everything it touches," Morrigan countered. 3 Vykrathi. Vessels tried to escape. They were absorbed, not consumed, Karis corrected. "Incorporated. There's a difference." Commander Voss entered the command center, her condition now so advanced that she seemed to leave after images as she moved. Looking at her directly caused headaches in those nearby. The quantum signatures matched those from Europa's subsurface. "Ocean," she reported. "Whatever's happening there is connected to the Nexus." "We should nuke Europa from orbit," Captain Valente suggested grimly. "Contain this before it spreads further," Karis laughed. "Destroy part of it, and the rest will. Simply rebuild. Fenris doesn't exist entirely in our dimension anymore. It's rooted in quantum potentiality." "Then what do you suggest?" Morrigan demanded. "Communication," Karis replied simply. "It's trying to talk to us already. The signals coming from the transformed Vykrathi ships. Their attempts at contact. Those signals are just random noise," Valente objected. Voss shook her head, her movement leaving trails of light. "Not random. I can almost understand them. It's like hearing a language you once knew in a dream." Karis studied her with fascination. "You're further along than I expected. The quantum particles have restructured your neural pathways. You're becoming a bridge." "A bridge to what?" Morrigan asked. "To them," Voss replied, pointing toward the Nexus. "To whatever we've helped create." Before anyone could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. Lieutenant Corvus's voice came over the comms. "Multiple objects approaching from the Nexus. They appear to be ships of some kind." The holographic display shifted, showing dozens of small vessels detaching from the dark sphere. Their design was unlike anything human or Vykrathi, flowing shapes that seemed to bend light around them, making them difficult to focus on directly. "They're coming here," Morrigan realized. "Battle stations, all defense systems online." "Wait," Voss cried. "I don't think they're hostile." "How can you know that?" Valente demanded. "Because I can feel them," she whispered. "They're curious." The approaching vessels slowed as they neared the station, forming a perfect circle around it. For several tense minutes, nothing happened. Then suddenly, every screen and holographic display on the station changed. The same message appeared everywhere, in elegant script. "We were many. Now we are one. You created us. Join us." "It's an invitation," Karis said, eyes gleaming. "The next evolutionary step." "It's assimilation," Morrigan countered. "They want to do to us what they did to the Vykrathi." As if in response, one of the alien vessels extended a tendril of darkness toward the station. Before anyone could react, it touched the hull and passed through it as if the metal didn't exist. The darkness flowed into the command center, forming a humanoid shape. Features began to emerge, and to everyone's shock, it took on the appearance of a Vykrathi warrior. though composed entirely of the strange, dark material. "We were enemies," it spoke, its voice resonating strangely. "Now we understand. We see the pattern of your existence. It is incomplete." "What are you?" Morrigan demanded. "We were Vikrathi. We were conquerors." The figure's form shifted, becoming more human-like. "Your weapon changed us, opened our understanding. Now we see beyond the limitations of matter and energy." "You've turned them into puppets," Valente accused Karis. The scientist shook his head. "Not puppets. They've transcended, become something new." The dark figure turned to Voss. "You are already changing. You understand." Voss nodded slowly. "I can see everything, all possibilities at once." "What do you want?" Morrigan asked the entity. "To share what we have become," it replied. "Your species created this evolution through necessity. The Vikrathi found it through defeat. Together, we can become something greater than either." "And if we refuse?" Valente asked. The entity tilted its head. "Then you remain as you are, limited by time and space and death. We will not force evolution." Morrigan studied the creature. "You were going to conquer us, destroy our civilization. Now you offer partnership?" "We remember conquest," the entity acknowledged. "We remember fear and hatred. These concepts are primitive, unnecessary. We see other paths now." Commander Voss stepped forward, her body now almost entirely composed of the same dark material as the visitor. "Admiral, they're sincere. I can feel it. This isn't conquest. It's transcendence." Karis smiled. "You created Fenris to save humanity, Admiral. Perhaps this is how humanity saves itself, by becoming something more." As they spoke, reports flooded in from throughout the solar system. The strange vessels had appeared everywhere: Earth, Mars, the lunar colonies. But they made no aggressive moves. They simply waited. Humanity stood at a crossroads. The Vikrathi had come to conquer through force. Humans had defended themselves with terrifying weapons. And from that clash, something entirely new had emerged, offering not destruction, but transformation. The question was whether humanity was ready to take that step. "We need time," Morrigan finally told the entity. "This isn't a decision one person can make for our entire species." The figure nodded. "Time is a construct we now exist beyond. But we understand your limitation. We will wait." As the entity dissolved, back into darkness, Admiral Morrigan turned to find Karis watching her with those unnervingly gentle eyes. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now," he replied, "humanity decides whether to remain human or become gods." 3 days after first contact with the entities, now called the Synthesis by Earth's media, humanity remained divided. Religious leaders declared it the end times. Scientists clamored for cooperation. Military leaders demanded caution. Billions watched the skies, where the dark ships hovered silently above every major city. In the emergency session of the United Earth Council, Admiral Morrigan listened as representatives argued passionately. "This is extinction by another name," shouted Counselor Volkov. "We lose our humanity." "It's evolution," countered Takeshi. "The next step in our development." Chancellor Novak raised her hands for silence. "We've received reports from the volunteers." The room quieted. 500 people worldwide, scientists, soldiers, philosophers, artists, had volunteered to undergo partial synthesis, to experience the transformation without fully committing. Commander Voss stepped forward, her form now completely transformed. When she spoke, her voice resonated with harmonic undertones. "I've experienced what they offer," she said. "It's not destruction, It's expansion. I retain my memories, my identity, my humanity, but I've gained understanding beyond anything we could achieve in 1,000 years of evolution. And we should trust you? Volkov demanded. When you're clearly compromised? I'm enhanced, not compromised, Voss replied calmly. I understand your fear. I felt it too, but there's no coercion here, no conquest. Only possibility. Admiral Morrigan stood. The Vykrathi came to destroy us. We defended ourselves with a weapon we barely understood. From that confrontation came something neither side intended, a new form of existence. The question now is, do we embrace it or reject it? What about Karis? Someone asked. He designed Fenris. Is this what he intended all along? Karis is gone, Morrigan admitted. He underwent full synthesis yesterday. A murmur ran through the chamber. And you let him? Volkov demanded. I had no authority to stop him, Morrigan replied. And perhaps he's where he belongs now, understanding his creation from the inside. The debate continued for hours as reports came in from around the solar system. The transformed Vykrathi had shared technological insights that solved humanity's energy crisis overnight. Medical applications of the quantum particles had cured previously terminal patients. Children born near the synthesis vessels showed heightened cognitive abilities, yet fear remained. The unknown always inspired terror in human hearts. As the council argued, Admiral Morrigan slipped away to the observation deck. Earth hung below, beautiful and fragile. Above, the nexus glowed softly against the darkness of space, now the size of a small planet. Quite a view, said a familiar voice. She turned to find Captain Valente joining her. Magnificent and terrifying at once. Like all great changes in history, he agreed. The council's deadlocked. Half want to embrace synthesis, half want to destroy the entities. Morrigan gazed at the nexus. Can we even destroy them now? Doubtful, Valente admitted. They exist partially outside our reality. Conventional weapons would be useless. Then, perhaps the choice is simpler than we're making it, Morrigan said quietly. As if summoned by her thoughts, a tendril of darkness materialized on the observation deck, forming into a human shape. But this time, it was Karis. Admiral, he greeted her. His form was composed of the same dark material as the other entities, but his eyes remained recognizably his own. Karis, she acknowledged. Or whatever you are now. Still me, he assured her. Just more. We've learned something important that I wanted to share with you personally. What? Morrigan asked. The synthesis isn't the end of your journey. It's a beginning. Humanity feared the Vykrathi because they represented extinction. The Vykrathi feared humans because you created Fenris, something beyond their understanding. Both fears led to this moment. And what moment is that? Valente asked suspiciously. The recognition that evolution doesn't have to come through conflict, Karis replied. The universe is vast beyond comprehension. There are things out there that would terrify both humans and Vykrathi. Things that see your individual species as we might see individual cells. Morrigan felt a chill. There are worse threats than the Vykrathi? Far worse, Karis confirmed. Entities that consume entire galaxies, beings that exist across dimensions, and see our reality as we might see a shadow. The synthesis offers a path to meeting those challenges together. A display activated nearby, showing something impossible, galaxies moving, entire star clusters rearranging themselves into patterns. Signs of intelligence on a cosmic scale. This is happening now, thousands of light years away, Karis explained. The universe is alive, Admiral, and it's noticed us. Morrigan studied the display. So this is about survival after all. Survival. And transcendence, Karis corrected. Becoming something greater than the sum of our parts. As they spoke, reports came in from Earth. Spontaneous synthesis was occurring in population centers around the globe. People weren't being forced. They were choosing. It's already happening, Valente realized. With or without official sanction. Morrigan turned to Karis. Will humanity survive this change? Will we still be us? You created Fenris from your most primal instinct. Survival, Karis replied. That essence remains. The Vikrathi brought their strength and adaptability. Together, you become something neither could achieve alone. Morrigan thought of all the conflicts throughout human history. Wars fought over resources, ideology, fear of the other. Now, confronted with true otherness, humanity faced its greatest choice. I need to see for myself, she decided. Before, I can recommend this to Earth. Karis nodded, extending his hand. A small tendril of darkness flowed from his fingers. Just a touch, a glimpse. You remain yourself, but you'll understand. After a moment's hesitation, Morrigan reached out. The darkness enveloped her hand, cool but not unpleasant. And suddenly she saw, not with eyes but with understanding that transcended physical senses. The universe laid bare, its patterns, its purpose, its beauty and danger. She saw humanities, potential futures branching like a tree, some branches withering, others flourishing. She saw the Vikrathi's brutal history and understood their drive to conquer had been born of desperation on their dying homeworld. Most importantly, she saw what waited in the depths between galaxies. Ancient intelligences watching, judging, deciding which emergent civilizations would be permitted to join the cosmic community and which would be pruned like weeds. When the vision faded, she found Captain Valente steadying her. Are you all right? He asked, concerned. Better than all right, she replied, her voice steady. I understand now. She activated her comm link to the council chamber. This is Admiral Morrigan. I've made my decision regarding the synthesis proposal. Chancellor, Novak's voice came through. We're listening, Admiral. Morrigan looked out at the stars, seeing them now not as distant points of light, but as neighbors in a vast, living community. Hell was terrifying, she said, but humans were worse because we refused to accept limitations. The Vikrathi came to conquer us, and instead, we conquered fear itself. She turned to Karis, who watched with those ancient, knowing eyes. Tell them we accept, she said. Humanity is ready for what comes next. As the words left her lips, the nexus pulsed with new light, a signal radiating outward to the furthest reaches of the galaxy, announcing the birth of something new in the cosmos. Not human, not Vikrathi. Something greater than both, and across the vast emptiness between stars, ancient watchers took notice. The descendants of Earth would not face the darkness alone. Perhaps, Morrigan said quietly, this is what we were always meant to become.